want to do right now is set a membership goal. So a new member goal. How many new scouts do you want to join this year? Maybe it might be 5 for a smaller unit, might be 10 or 20. And you know, we have units that a realistic goal for them is 30 to 40 new scouts in the fall. But every unit is a little bit different. So we want you to set your own goal. And remember, as you're planning this, to plan something really fun to do at back to school time. So the beginning of August is a great time for a fishing derby or a rain gutter regatta, something the kids will remember. And I always tell the story, Becca, I'm sure you've heard this before. One summer when my child was in, my Eagle Scout, was in elementary school. He wasn't an Eagle yet. But he was in elementary school, and right after school went out, we went to Disney World. And I know you've just come back from Disney World, so you understand how phenomenal that trip is. It's a fantastic trip for a family, and just a great way to make wonderful memories. We went right after school went out. So right before school started, we had a fishing derby with our pack. A lot of fun, but we were, like in Garvin Park for a couple hours. We might have caught a fish, maybe not, I don't even remember. But he went back to school, and the first thing they ask is, what did you do this summer? And he said, I went fishing. Really?
Oh, yeah.
You couldn't remember the trip we took to Disney?
You could save.
Yeah, we could have just gone fishing. So think about those kind of things.
What's going to be fresh in mind?
You have a short memory. Make sure you put something together that's a lot of fun and memorable right before school starts, because that's when we are in schools talking to potential new scouts. Yes. And that's when everybody has it on the top of their mind.
Recent, top of mind. And equip your scouts with ways to share an invitation to get involved as well. A lot of them are on social media, but also little buddy cards, little cards that you use to invite, that they can put in their pocket. I mean, they love Pokemon cards, they love cards. So putting invitations to pack meetings into their pockets to take home, and mom finds it when she's doing the laundry, or dad, let's face it, dad should be doing laundry too. These are some easy ways to just keep it top of mind with your kids, no matter what age they are.
Yeah, and those things are available online on scouting.org, and I think we're going to put a link on this video of where you can find those. It's a great place.
All right, and then we want to talk a little bit about how to promote your unit to the community so people know that scouting is available. So there are entire day-long seminars on this, so I've been thinking a little bit about some of the key high points to make. And also, Tanya and I are going to be working together at Merit Badge University for Native Trails District in February, doing a presentation on sort of this topic, because marketing and membership are so closely related, which is why we're doing this together today. But there's a lot of places for word of mouth promotion, working with local media, especially if you live in a small town, and especially social media. I realize that there are people who are watching this that might be very involved and experienced with social media, and there might be some who don't even have social media accounts. So I don't want to get into the weeds on this, but I think it's important to recognize that the parents of your current and future scouts are on social media. And so thinking of a way to make that work for your pack or troop is really important. So for example, Facebook is great for setting up groups. So if you want to set up a group that's private and locked down for your pack or troop, it's a great way to communicate. It's a great way to share pictures. It lets people know what's going on, reminding us what we have coming up. And you can set certain posts to be public so that people can share it and use it on their own pages, which helps show some of the great activities you're doing, which is helpful for recruiting members. It all is one big continuous circle. But then a lot of, especially younger scout moms, those that are under 35, they are more present on Instagram, and that is very photo driven. And so you want to be sure that you have great photos being taken at your activities and being shared on Instagram so that those moms can see it and be really motivated to enroll their son or daughter in scouting. So we're going to go into a lot of those details at that event at Merit Badge University. In the meantime, as with all scouting activities, safety and security on social media are really important. And we have some recommendations and guidelines for social media usage from the Boy Scouts of America, and we're going to have that link available to you so you can look at that and be familiar with some best practices, some do's and don'ts for that as well.
And selecting awesome leaders, outstanding leaders, is going to be a key to retaining those new families. We talk about we don't want to just bring new families in, we want to keep them in the program.
Yes.
So the first thing we'll talk about is what do we look for? So do you have an idea of what a great leader would look like?
Someone who's engaged,
Oh yeah.
organized,
Mm-hmm.
good with the kids.
Yeah. Passionate about the program.
Yes.
Somebody that sort of embodies that scout spirit.
Yes.
And I laugh a lot of times, and you've heard me say it before, I don't like other people's children, which is why I deal with adults. So I'm not a good den leader. I'm just not. Now, if you wanted me to be the PAC secretary or committee chair, or I could go to the Baloo training and be that person that was at the outdoor activities because I'm taking my scout with me.
Yes.
But you don't want me to be a den leader. That's not a good fit for me. So finding that perfect fit, what works well with each personality, is critical. And somebody that actually knows their strengths and weaknesses, they're going to be somebody that will say, no, I don't want to do that. So how do we go about asking? We found that ideal candidate. So how do we go about asking them? That's another thing that we sort of struggle with, because sometimes I've seen Cub masters or committee chairs stand up in front of a room full of parents and just say, hey, who wants to be a den leader?
Yeah.
Well,
2 crickets.
yeah. I've not ever had a good response to that. Crickets is exactly right. The room goes completely silent and everybody looks down and doesn't even want to make eye contact because, oh no, you're going to ask me to do something. So if we take some time and we get to know those parents, the fall field day, fall fun day, it's a great opportunity to watch how families how the adults in each family interacts with the kids, because they're all out there together. And if you've got somebody that's on their phone and not engaged, you might want to choose them for a social media chairman, but probably not a den leader. And if you've got someone that's yelling and screaming at the kids all the time, or they get a little crazy when they're just going wild, not a good den leader. But the person that's actually helping out jumps out and goes, here, I'll help them build a rocket, and actually takes the time and does a great job helping them build that rocket. We might want to talk to them about becoming a den leader.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is a great trial run for some of those new families. If you've got some activities between now and then, it's awesome to really observe those families and really observe those parents, how they interact with the kids, how do they interact with the other parents. A lot of people did the parent talent surveys and the family talents,
Yeah.
so take a look at those. I know in the applications, there's a place in there that talks about previous scouting experience. If you've got a previous, an Eagle Scout, once an Eagle Scout, always an Eagle Scout. So if you've got an Eagle Scout, I think I'd find a place for them in my leadership course.
Definitely.
Somewhere. They may not be good for a den leader, but I bet they're going to be good at something. So take a look at some of the resources that you have. Really observe those parents. Understand that the first month and maybe 2, if you've got a new den that's formed, a cub master, a committee chair, another den leader might have to run that den for a month or 2 until you put somebody in place. And then we talked about how do we ask them? Well, if I email you,
It is so easy to ignore.
here's the ideal situation. If you call someone or stop them in person and just talk to them about, not, hey, I want you to be a den leader, but here's what I see that would make you an outstanding den leader. And oh, by the way, this is what I'm asking you to do. So be real specific about that.
Yes.
Talk about, you set your own schedule. Awesome. I can set my own den leader schedule, my own den schedule. That's great. There's training provided. There's tons of training. There's some training coming up in our district and in our council. So watch for that and be sure and let them know, hey, that training is out there. And don't just throw them to the wolves. So,
Right.
Yeah. So if I ask you to be a den leader and I say, don't worry, I'm going to help you with that. Actually back them up, help them with it. And check in on them. Check in on them in November, December. Make sure they're okay. If they're not showing up at PAC meetings or PAC events, it's kind of a red flag. We might want to have a little intervention, or at least check in and make sure everything's okay. It does happen. People have a lot of things going on in the fall. They have a lot of things going on in the spring, but we just want to make sure we're got somebody that's in there and active.
Yes, remember your den leaders are the most important leaders in your pack because they're the ones seeing the kids every single meeting. So if they're canceling meetings or if their meetings are unorganized, that could spell disaster for your pack leader down the line.
Yeah, and parents are usually pretty good about it. If you ask them, hey, what's going on in the den? How's your scout doing? What are you thinking? They will tell you pretty quick. Well, our den leader always cancels the meeting, or I never know, they call us the day before, the day of, and try to have a den meeting. So those are some flags that maybe we need to give them a little guidance.
Yes.
But definitely be real specific about how you ask them. Be very specific. These are the things I'm going to ask you to do as a den leader.
Absolutely, and we always want to make sure that our scouts are having fun, and so putting together a great program is a wonderful way to do that. And so we always start off with trying to find ideas, doing some brainstorming of what can be done. And a great way to find ideas is going to the Ideal Year of Scouting that is hosted by the council here, to go out and find out what activities are available in the area, outside the area, and what is possible for our units to do. And it's a great place for new ideas. A lot of times with scouting, we kind of get into routines, especially as leaders, that every year we're doing the same thing over and over again. So the Ideal Year of Scouting is a great place to be able to find new activities, new ideas maybe you haven't done before.
And talk to other leaders and get more ideas.
Lots of great networking opportunities in Scouts.
Yeah. So now that we've gone to the Ideal Year of Scouting, we have some really great ideas. What's the next thing you're going to do with your unit?
Next thing is we're going to sit down and we're going to gather our leadership together, get some volunteers put together also, ream in some of those parents that would like to help out, and start to pick through the different ideas, to have discussions and figure out which ones make the most sense for our unit, which ones we think the Scouts would enjoy doing. At the Scouts BSA level, I think it's important to have the conversation with the Scouts also. They're at the age where they can make some decisions of what they would like to do. Have them give their 2 cents, give their input, and then you're able to really have them embrace the program a little bit more.
So your annual planning conference is going to be the time of the year where you bring in your parents, some of your scouts, your leadership team, and really kind of work out what your calendar plan is going to be. What programs do you want to do? What things do you want to always do, keep in rotation? What things do you want to try new? And then put those all together in a calendar and see where they fit. The more people that are engaged, the better off you're going to make sure your calendar is going to fit with your family's schedules. And it's also going to really give you an opportunity to kind of get different interests and different ideas. So the more people, the merrier for this activity.
Absolutely, and with that also you get the opportunity to, with some of the planning, those activities, if you can get them put in place, you can get some additional help from some of the leaders and some of the parents, if maybe they'd like to help plan the actual activity and maybe register for or reserve the campsite or something along those lines if that's necessary. So it's always great to be able to pull in some new volunteers.
And I also find that if your parents are engaged in the planning process, they're not as likely to complain whenever you're doing something that they were part of planning.
Very important.
So now we've got our calendar planned, or we've got some ideas. What's the next step in our planning process? Or what would maybe some other pointers be?
Well, one thing that's very important to think about is how are you going to pay for the program that you just put together for the year. And so taking a look at budgeting. What budget do you currently have? Is it enough to cover the items, the activities that you're planning on doing? If it's not, then take a look at what needs to be done. Is it time to look at doing a fundraiser? Is it something where for that specific activity, so they'd have to charge individually for that? Or what are the next steps to be able to make sure that that activity can take off?
And one of the things I would really recommend when you're planning your calendar is, first of all, think big. So don't just do what you've always done. What do you want to do? What are the things that will really take your program to the next level? If we can start thinking about where can we go if we do the right fundraising, let's think about that.
Well, I think with thinking big, a good thing to think about is what are the Scouts going to be talking about the next time that they're around? What memories are we wanting to create for those Scouts so where they can say, okay, hey, that's something I really like that I'm going to remember for the rest of my life. And I think that's important for scouting to have those lifetime memories on that.
And I would always plan in like a tiered structure. So if you hit X fundraising level, then you can do these things. But if you go a little bit beyond that, where can you take your scouts? And I think that's something to really consider. I know we were fortunate enough to have a really good fundraising program, so we were able to take our scouts to the City Museum in St. Louis, and almost all of our
parents and scouts were able to participate in that activity. It was a really big deal for our pack.
Yeah. And an easy way to look at budgeting and things along those lines is also to look at, do you budget as a per scout item? Is it a per family item? Is it a per activity item? And try to take a look at those things. That way you can figure out, okay, if we're going to go to City Museum in Evansville or in St. Louis, it's going to cost X amount of dollars. How do we divvy that up, and how do we kind of figure those things out to be able to look at the budget? Because as you dream big, sometimes you can dream really big and all of a sudden find out that you need $100,000 to be able to accomplish everything you're looking for this next year.
I think you do it for less than that.
That may be a little tough to do if you're going all over the United States, but you can find out ways to be able to raise those funds. All right, so now we've done the planning, we've put together the budget for all the activities we've planned. So now we need to set our goal of how we're going to pay for everything of the budget for this year. And so a great way to do that is naturally with fundraising and being able to figure out how much money we need to hit that budget. And so one thing that's important to do with fundraising is make sure that you add a little extra money on top of what you're fundraising for, usually 5 to 10, maybe up to 15% to cover some prizes. So not only do you want to cover the budget for the activities, but you want to make sure for fundraising that we're able to reward the scouts for all their hard works and effort.
I highly recommend popcorn for your fundraiser. So while you're doing popcorn, Trails In and the council will provide a lot of incentives to keep your scouts selling. And then we would recommend that PACs might find ways to recognize top sellers each week or for the wholesale. So, use that money that you budget in to really identify those scouts and keep them motivated to go throughout that sale.
Yeah, it is amazing what some very inexpensive prizes will do to motivate a lot of scouts to be able to keep them going and pushing on for those extra dollars to be able to increase the program that much more.
So how do we plan our budget or our fundraising goal once we have our budget set? So we take that per boy or per scout cost, and we're just going to take simple math. So let's say your per scout for the whole year is going to cost about $300 per scout. You're going to take that times the 5 to 10%, so it's going to bump us to $315 per scout for our fundraising goals. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take that times what we're going to keep. So if we're going to keep about 30% of what we're raising, we're going to take our $315 times 0.30, and that's going to tell us exactly what our goal needs to be for our fundraiser for the year. So a $300 goal for a scout would then cost us about $1,000 in fundraising. It seems high, but if you get the parents on board with all of the things that you're going to cover, $1,000 is really not that hard to get to whenever you're doing show and sell booths and other door-to-door activities to sell.
Absolutely, and with that, taking a look at different prize levels and things along those lines is a great thing to be able to say, hey, if you achieve this level, then we're able to offer these prizes. So with that, if $1,000 is what you're hoping every scout raises, some scouts will hit there and some won't. And so trying to be able to plan for those scouts that are actually going to overachieve is a great idea. So if they hit the $1,000, then maybe they get one prize. So if they're able to sell $1,300 or $1,500, then they're helping to cover some of the other scouts. And so maybe there's some additional prizes that would make sense for them.
Well, and a $1,000 level is a really great level for incentives at the council level. They're going to get to go to several different offered activities that are free to them and invite the whole family, the movie, usually a couple games throughout the year, the Otters overnight, some other activities as well. So in addition to that, you might set goals at $1,500 to really get them to the Scout Shop certificate that they're going to receive and some other things. So, putting goals in between will really encourage them. Well, I'm not that far from the X goal, so I'm going to go ahead and get that $100 for the Scout Shop.
Absolutely.
So it's always been a part of scouting. It's a very important part about scouting, and that's why we have as our scout slogan, do a good turn daily. And so what is a good turn? Well, it's any action that we do that helps other people, helps the community, and helps make the world a better place. And so scouting has always been having service as part of its hours. So what is the service hour, as you ask? Service hour is basically a special good turn that's done for the betterment of the community. And so that can take many, many forms. If you go back like Of course, you don't go back that far, but in World War II, I don't go back that far either. That's a little bit before my time. But the Scouts collected metal for the war effort, and they did many things that were large in nature. And of course, there's the when they always talk about Scouts escort old women across the streets. So they can be very small things, but they can be very large things. But they all count.
So service has really been a part of Scouting since the beginning. That's how we were founded here. When we have 3 aims in our program, number 1 is character development, number 2 is citizenship training, and number 3 is personal fitness. And service really is a key part of that citizenship training and learning, teaching our Scouts to do good things for their community. A lot of other, what does a Scout get besides they feel good? What else can they learn from doing service or recording their service hours?
Well, by doing the service projects, as you said, one of the things we try to instill in our youth is their duty and responsibility to the country. And so that makes it a better place, so therefore they feel like they're more participative in the community and contributing to the welfare of their society and community.
So another reason that we might record our service hours is to show our units. So when we have a group of Scouts who work together, your Scout feels like, well, I've only done an hour of service. But if we can record our service hours online and then print our certificate that we're able to print from the site, we can show the unit, the pack or the troop or the crew, that they've actually together been able to do 30 hours of service to the community in that 1 hour because of so many Scouts participating. So it helps our Scouts to learn that together we can have a really big impact on a community. While as an individual, we have a small impact, but when we work together in a group, we can have a much larger impact.
Yeah.
For the district level and the council level, recording of service hours is really important. I think some of our unit leaders really feel that, we're not supposed to get credit for our service. We don't want to get, we're not looking to be applauded for the things that we're doing. And we're not asking you to record your service hours necessarily for a pat on the back, which a pat on the back is okay for your Scouts when they do a good turn. But what we're really looking for is a way to show the community, to increase our visibility in the community for the things that we do, so that our Scouts are recognized, and then in turn we as a district professionals can go out and help fundraise to keep our costs down for our activities and our events that we do, which help engage more Scouts in the program. So by recording our service hours, ultimately, we're increasing our community visibility. We're able to then go out and show the community how being in Scouting benefits the community as a whole. And then we're able to ask them to support us financially so that we can continue to bring more Scouts into the program and to continue to do more projects that will then benefit the community.
Risk management team is all about mitigating risk for our youth. Scouting in itself is inherently risky. We're encouraging our Scouts to go outdoors and to try new things and to have amazing experiences. But there are ways that we as adult leaders can mitigate those risks. So how do we keep youth and adults safe in our program? Do you want to talk about some of the resources?
Well, online there's what's called Guidelines of Safe Scouting. And you go on the BSA website and you can Google the Guide to Safe Scouting. And there'll be tabs in there that'll show you multiple items that you may be looking for. For example, you may be doing some watercraft and you'll want to look at all the different watercraft rules that are out there to keep your Scout safe. There's also different ones for just playing ball, volleyball, basketball. All these things all come with inherent risk that we need to mitigate. And all these are all listed in the Guide to Safe Scouting.
There's another resource out there called Age-Appropriate Guidelines for Scouting Activities. And we'll put a picture of that up on the screen. But what does that do for our leaders?
Well, what that does, that actually breaks down exactly what type of group you've got, whether it's Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts Ventures, and you can actually look and see what is age appropriate activity for that particular group. It is online, like Debbie said, and it's real easy to go by. You just kind of look at the program that you're wanting to do, and age appropriate sheet will show you what is available for that particular group.
And then there's also the Sweet 16 of BSA safety, which isn't something I knew about when I initially started working here. So what are the Sweet 16?
Well, the Sweet 16 are actually 16 points that are in the Guide to Safe Scouting that highlight basically just 16 points that they want us to keep in focus when we're doing these activities.
Yeah, and those Sweet 16 are qualified supervision, physical fitness, the buddy system, safe area or course, equipment selection and maintenance, personal safety equipment, safety procedures and policies, skill level limits, weather check, planning, communications, plans and notices, first aid resources, applicable laws, CPR resource, and discipline. And all those they go into pretty good detail about what each one is and how you should implement it. So you and your unit took all the precautions, you read all the materials, did everything right, but someone still got hurt. Now what?
So if somebody gets hurt, we need to make sure we get them to the hospital first, if they need to go to the hospital. Otherwise, just first aid treatment. Once we know that scout or adult is doing all right, you want to make sure you get an incident report filled out. The incident report needs to be filled out within 1 or 2 days. We ask that be done within that amount of time, because it's still fresh in your mind and you've got all the information still pretty accessible. Once that is filled out, get it to the council office so that they can process as needed, and also if any insurance needs are required, that can be taken care of as well.
All right, so take your injured person to the hospital or give them first aid as needed. Report the incident to ICAM Scout Center. If that's an email to your district professional, a call during business hours, whatever works better, and you can do the quickest. Complete the incident report within 1 to 2 business days, which will require personal information for the injured party, like their address, their phone number. It has to be completely filled out, and it will also ask for witness statements. So you do want a few different witnesses who can explain what happened, how it happened, any hazards they saw, and give as much detail as possible. And then we have the insurance paperwork that you would give the injured party's family, and that insurance acts as secondary to their own. So if they do have to go to the hospital, they would defer paying the copay or any other expenses at that time, complete and send off the insurance paperwork, and then the BSA insurance would cover anything that their insurance didn't. And the last thing I think that the family needs to be aware of is that they might get contacted by National or by the council risk management team or scout executive to get more details or get a better idea of what happened. So they might have extra questions.
That's right. And Abby, there's one more report that we like to see from time to time, and that's called the near miss report. The near miss report is there to help us limit any future accidents that could be happening that we're not seeing. For example, if someone is at camp and they happen to trip into a hole, we'd like to make sure that hole gets filled up. And the only way we can find out about it is if it's been reported to us. So these common denominators that may come from different troops on these near miss reports, we can start putting them together and start filling in the blanks and fixing things.